Well, here's something that I'm actually going to do my Friday night Vespers on this subject. It's a great study subject, and it's a little bit deeper than I thought. When I had my friend ask me this question, uh, I actually had to pause before I answered because it's a deeper question than we think. We think the answer is just Matthew 6, but it's not. So here's the question, and then we're going to dive into it. My friend said, what is your opinion? It's not my opinion. What does the Bible say? But that's okay. What's your opinion when you do a good deed, and should we tell others about it? Is it okay to tell others about what we just did? And so the first reaction is to go to Matthew, and we're going to go to Matthew. So Matthew 6, and this is where I would expect most Christians to go to when they're asked that question about, should we share it? Should we share it with others when we do something good? In Matthew 6, Jesus is talking, and he says here, take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, we have no reward from your Father in heaven. And so when we read that, we have to look at what the focus is. It looks like, well, the deeds are really being performed to be seen by others, okay? Which is a game changer. That's a game changer, right? Because it's self-focus. So Jesus goes on to explain this even more. He says, therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory from men. Surely, I say to you, they have their reward. So, when I read this, I kind of think about the Jews when they pray. I guess they pray at the wall every day. I think it's called the Wailing Wall. I'm not sure. But anyway, Jesus saw a lot of hypocrisy in his time. And it came from the Pharisees. They looked good on the outside. Everything was about appearance, but they were dirty on the inside. And so I'm sure that's why he's using this as an example, because they were hypocrites. And he's saying the same thing to us when we're doing charitable deeds. It's not about, ooh, look at me, right? But then he goes on to say, because he's always teaching, and I love this about Jesus. Then he says, but when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees it in secret will himself reward you openly. So again, more instructions from Jesus. When you do a charitable act, it's not supposed to be sounding a trumpet. If anything, you go ahead and do your deed, and in secret, God sees in secret. He sees this, okay? So, and I think just a little side note observation about doing it in secret. What Jesus is attempting to do is to take man's focus off of themselves. And saying, if you did your deed in secret, God sees. So he's trying to remove our self-focus at this point. It's pretty clear, right? But we're gonna even dig a little bit deeper. In the same book, Matthew 5:16, we are going to read, let your light so shine before men that what? They see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So what in the heck is Jesus saying here? It sounds like he's commanding people to let others see their good deeds. So what? They can glorify and basically praise our Father in heaven. Very interesting, right? So now we're going to build on that. 1 Peter 2:12 then says, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. So now do you see, as we're reading these scriptures, we're looking at it in a different way. Now we're talking about our good works, our deeds, our charitable acts, But that display of good works, actually showing people, like the Gentiles who are evil speaking about us, when we show them through our acts, how that glorifies God. So it's not talking about keeping that in secret. Now it's actually talking about glorifying God with our works. Now we're going to elaborate even more. And we're still in Matthew. Now we go to Matthew 25, and we go all the way to, we can go to 34, 35, 36, all of this. It says here, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you invited me. I was in prison and you came." And then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, and thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" And the king will answer and say to them, "Assuredly, I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me." All right, I told you we're going to dig deep. Now, I just read that verse, and I want to read from this beautiful book called The Desire of Ages. And it says here about that verse, it says, "In that day, Christ does not present before men the great work he has done for them in giving his life for their redemption." Listen to this. He presents the faithful work they have done for him. "Come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty." Right? We just read that. It says Jesus had told his disciples that they were to be hated of all men, to be persecuted and afflicted. Many would be driven from their homes and brought to poverty. Many would be in distress through disease and privation. Many would be cast into prison. To all who forsook friends or home for his sake, he had promised in this life 100-fold. Now he assured a special blessing to all who should minister to their brethren. "And all who suffer for my name, for Jesus, you are to recognize me as you would minister to me, so you are to minister to them. This is the evidence that you are my disciples." So when we read that scripture, we are called for good works. We are called for charitable acts. We are called to help our brethren. So you see how much deeper that goes? In James 2:14, it does a wonderful elaboration on what Jesus has been teaching us. And this is what it says in James 14. "What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can faith save him?" Now listen to this. "If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to him, 'Depart in peace, I'll be warmed and filled,' but do not give him the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." So now we're tying in our faith with our good deeds, our charitable acts, our works. And as we come full circle, what the scriptures preach is that it's not just about being secret about your charitable deeds and doing a good act and not blowing the trumpet and, "Oh, it's all about me." No, it's about doing those acts for the glory of God, helping your brothers and sisters. And it's all tied in to not just glorifying God now, but it's also tied into our faith. Faith without works is dead. There is no faith then. It's talking about this right here. It's dead. So you see how we can really dig in deep with that one question? In James 2:14, it does a wonderful elaboration on what Jesus has been teaching us. And this is what it says in James 14. What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? Now listen to this. If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to him, depart in peace, I'll be warmed and filled, but do not give him the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. So now we're tying in our faith with our good deeds, our charitable acts, our works. And as we come full circle, what the scriptures preach is that it's not just about being secret about your charitable deeds and doing a good act and not blowing the trumpet and, oh, it's all about me. No, it's about doing those acts for the glory of God, helping your brothers and sisters. And it's all tied in to not just glorifying God now, but it's also tied into our faith. Faith without works is dead. There is no faith then. It's talking about this right here. It's dead. So you see how we can really dig in deep with that one question? We're going to go to Hebrews 11:6, and it says here, but without faith. Now we're talking about faith now, and we're talking about works. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. I'm reading right here from the Sign of the Times, and it's very beautiful because it talks about Hebrews 11:6, what we just read, but then it goes on to say, there are many in the Christian world who claim that all that is necessary to salvation, listen to this, is to have faith. Works are nothing. Faith is the only essential, but God's word tells us that faith without works is dead, being alone. Many refuse to obey God's commandments, yet they make a great deal of faith. But faith must have a foundation. Very, very powerful. And then it goes on to say, we are workers together with God. You are not to sit in indolence, waiting for some great occasion in order to do a great work for the Master. You are not to neglect the duty that lies directly in your path, but you are to improve the little opportunities that are around you. Again, we can go right back to Matthew 25, where Jesus says, what you've done to the least of my brethren, you've done it to me. It all goes full circle. So, as we wrap this up, that first initial question was about, should we share our terrible acts? And my answer is, if it glorifies God, if it edifies the body, if it encourages somebody else to do the same, if it helps them see that you are magnifying Jesus, and that you're walking out the will of God. The will of God is to do these things, because faith without works is dead. So you see how this all kind of ties in together. So what I say is, yes, if you've done something that glorifies God and you want to share it, share it. My friend had a great story about how she was looking for her lost dog. Now, this is how God works. And there was a Facebook picture of some dogs that looked just like hers. And so she went to go see if that one of them was her dog. And she ended up where some homeless people were, and it wasn't her dog, but through looking for her dog, the Lord brought her to these homeless people. Before she even went there, she had bought a whole bunch of blankets and gloves, and I think she just felt like the Lord impressing upon her before she heads out to look for her dog. And so she loaded up her car, and she ended up helping these homeless people. she brought them some meals and something to drink and eat, and she brought them those blankets. And even though she didn't find her dog, and she prayed with these homeless people. And then she asked me, before she even told me what she had done, she says, is it okay to share if we do an act, like an act of charity? And that's where this is when it all started. And so that story that she told me glorifies God, because you know what? It increased her faith, because she's never really prayed with anybody in public like that. So, and I also saw how God used her and her loss of her dogs to connect her with some people that really needed help. So God gets all the glory. And yes, share that. Share those things. On my channel, I share my encounters, and that's kind of a no-brainer, right? Because that really does glorify God. It's God connecting me with people at the right place at the right time that only God can do. Very rarely do I share a charitable act, but when I do, it's always to the glory of God and how God arranged it. So just don't go to Matthew 6 when someone asks you, should I share? If you know that their sharing is coming from a genuine place to glorify God, we should let our good works shine for men to see, because that shines a light on Christ and what he's done into our life. All right? So there we go. I hope that helps. I hope that was a good study. And tonight is Friday, so I'm going to be doing a Vespers at 7 o'clock. Anybody who's interested in calling the Magic Jack number can come and join us. And I don't do it every Friday, but it's Friday Eastern time. And you can email me for the number if you ever want to join. God bless you guys.